Hello from the Qtv Newsroom. I am Maria Masani and thanks for joining us. First, the main local and international news headlines. Lawyers on Tuesday argued over the case before the Supreme Court regarding the National Assembly's controversially approved $54.4 million loan scheme. The family of Alhaji Kemo Kantem made a significant contribution towards access to health care for children by handing over a newly built children's ward at the Karawan Health Center to the Minister of Health. Because law enforcement officers are often the first individuals victims of domestic violence are likely to encounter to report their abuse, we take a look at the role of the police in tackling SGBV. The National Assembly's Public Enterprise Committee on Monday began consideration of the report submitted by GRTS for the 2019 fiscal year. In international news, new security forces have withdrawn from Ugandan presidential candidate Bobi Wine's residence after he spent 11 days under house arrest. A third night of rioting has rocked the Netherlands as protesters defied a COVID-19 curfew order and rampaged through towns, cities, causing havoc. Those were our main headlines. Now the local news in detail. Lawyers on Tuesday argued over the case before the Supreme Court regarding the National Assembly's controversially approved $54.4 million loan scheme. The Supreme Court hearing of the case has been opposing exchanges between the defense and plaintiff lawyers as to whether Parliament broke the law when it introduced and approved a motion to allocate a loan scheme for their personal benefits. Mamadou Lamin Char reports.
The Supreme Court of the Gambia, with 5 justices, are hearing a case triggered by 2 civil society organizations challenging the legality of a legislative decision on the 2021 budget estimates. Representing the plaintiffs is Hawa Sisa Sabali, who in her arguments today starts by quoting the relevant sections of the Constitution to show that the National Assembly failed to exercise due process when it introduced and approved a motion for a loan scheme. The plaintiffs want the court to rule that it is only the President, through the Minister of Finance, who has the power to introduce or authorize an amendment of a draft estimate of revenue and expenditure for National Assembly's consideration and approval. Lawyer Hawa Sisa Sabali's argument for the plaintiffs also indicates that the National Assembly could exercise due process by following its standing orders, the Public Finance Act and the 1997 Constitution. The motion for the loan, as she put it, was fundamentally flawed as it contravenes a section in the 1997 Constitution which guides the procedure for the introduction of bills and motions before the legislature. And part of her argument was that the purpose for the loan violates that section of the 1997 Constitution which dictates that members should maintain the dignity of the Assembly and shall be guided by conscience and national interests in discharge of their functions. For the defense, lawyer Ida Drame contends that the plaintiffs have not submitted any evidence before the court which proves the claim that the National Assembly had amended the 2021 draft estimates of revenue and expenditure for the inclusion of a new budget line item. It is my submission that the plaintiffs misconceived what is contained in the Estimates and the Appropriation Act, she argues. Lawyer Ida Drame defends the Assembly's loan scheme, saying that a motion was introduced and voted for with a majority and that the minister acted within his legal authority to include the budget line item for it after it was proposed and successfully passed. She relies on a provision of the Public Finance Act which gives the minister sole authority to lend state funds, but with a set of criteria to be followed. In representing the Attorney General, the Minister of Finance, and the Auditor General, lawyer Binga Denshia reinforces the defense arguments, stating and clarifying that the Public Finance Act is not applicable for the loan scheme, but only loans by the Gambia government. Lawyer Denshia concludes by challenging that the Supreme Court lacks the legal powers to hear a case on the National Assembly's proceedings. Whether the court has the legal jurisdiction is countered by the lawyer for the plaintiff. The court adjourned to a date to be communicated later when the judges will meet to make rulings and judgments on an injunction against the loan scheme and the legality of the National Assembly's decision on it. Mahmoud Lamin Choi, Qtv News.
Access to health care for children is important, and on Saturday, the family of Alhaji Kemo Konte made a significant contribution towards this by handing over to the Minister of Health a newly built children's ward at the Karawan Health Center. Mamadou Lamin Choi reports.
This is the Karawan Health Center, where the family of Alhaji Kemo Konte have constructed a children's ward as a contribution towards improving children's access to health services. Community leaders and residents, including 3 state ministers and other senior government officials, attended the handing over ceremony. The Alcalo of Karawan, on behalf of Karawan Village, pointed out the crucial role Karawan Health Center plays for the community's healthcare needs. The village Alcalo and most of the residents of Karawan are happy with the construction of a children's ward at the health center. The Alcalo also used the opportunity to ask for the Ministry of Health to provide more doctors for the health center. According to the head of the Alhaji Kemo Konte family, the motivation to provide a children's ward at the health center was to facilitate smooth access to quality and affordable health care. The family head recollects memories of the country's poor health sector during his childhood days, which he attributes to poor road network and health infrastructure. His family is supporting a health center that contributed towards saving the life of their son, who was a victim of a respiratory infection during his childhood days. The son happens to be Lang Konte, the head of the Alhaji Kemo Konte family, who delivers an emotional speech.
Despite their capacity,
It's okay.
yeah, thank you, sir. Despite their capacity and logistic challenges, did everything to stabilize my condition before I was referred to the Royal Victoria Teaching Hospital, Children's Ward. Yeah, I counted myself to be lucky to have survived the ailment, but this could not be said of many children who had succumbed to the cold hand of.
The Minister of Gender, Children and Social Welfare is delighted at the construction of a children's ward at this center and acknowledging that in many places, health systems are not equipped to support routine health interactions involving children, families and caregivers. Minister Kinte also highlighted government's contributions towards the expansion of primary health care coverage for children, citing vaccine and epidemic control measures.
Is working towards ensuring that everybody is healthy. For us, health is priority, more so the health of children. And I think if everybody emulates this family, the work of the government will be easier. I said in my statement that we don't have such in the communities. And then the mere fact that a member of this community has taken up the bold step with his family, I think everybody else should follow suit. And we make sure that we support the government in this development agenda. Because after all, we are doing it for ourselves, our children, and our future.
The Minister of Health, in response to the community's appeal for more doctors, confirmed his ministry's plan to provide health centers with more doctors, including for the Karawan Health Center. The minister also talks about how the facility can help towards giving proper access to primary health care for children.
Now, it will also help us, ensure that the kids are not admitted on the adult wards. Kids have different physiologies, they have different reactions to disease, and then being admitted in the adult wards really becomes distressful for the children, and they may even be prone to other diseases, from cross-infection. Yeah.
Sanitary materials and other equipment were presented to the health center for the maintenance of the ward. The Alhaji Kemo Konte Memorial Children's Ward is a child-friendly infrastructure equipped with facilities such as an admission point, beds, a playground, kitchen, nurse's station, bathroom, and toilets. The ward is named after Alhaji Kemo Konte, who is described as a parent who had considerable compassion and a reputable character. Mamadou Lamin Choi, Qtv News.
The national broadcaster GRTS was among state-owned enterprises to present activity and financial report to the National Assembly's Public Enterprise Committee, which on Monday began consideration of the report for the 2019 fiscal year. As Jainab Sanko reports, the consideration has been adjourned till further notice due to time constraints.
Responding to questions from the Public Enterprise Committee, the chairperson of the Board of Directors for GRTS says, like any other state enterprise, GRTS needs the support of government to perform as expected, adding that the state broadcaster cannot compete with private entities.
GRTS as a public service broadcaster cannot be
seen or cannot compete at the same level like any private. Because of the public service remit, necessarily GRTS has to be subsidized. It is not a commercial entity, it is a public service broadcaster. It cannot generate revenues like any other commercial entity. So obviously, a form of government subsidy must exist for the public service to be viable.
According to the GRTS management, payment of the levy on GSM companies, which they greatly rely on to fund their operations, have been inconsistent.
The challenges have overwhelmed the institution because the support that we are talking about, the levy, is not a sustainable thing, to keep a public broadcaster going. That is the reality. Because the levy we are receiving, we don't even receive it on monthly basis. Some companies even default. We keep on, running here and there. The finance director can attest to that. With the GRA, to even collect those levies is difficult. So without repositioning GRTs, for us to be a public broadcaster, that will be viable and given all the resources to be able to compete.
The committee's consideration has been adjourned until further notice due to time constraints. The Social Security Housing Finance Corporation also appeared before the National Assembly's Public Enterprise Committee without a financial report. The committee has given them up to 15 February to submit their 2019 Financial Activity Report for consideration. Reporting for QTV News, I am Jenna Basonko.
We will take a commercial break. When we return, we continue with local news stories.
To make sure your company's products and services reach your potential customers, it is essential that you choose the right channel for your marketing purposes. QTV has the widest reach locally and beyond, and we can give your business the visibility it needs. Call QTV Marketing on +220 324 4444 or email us at marketing@qtv.gm and take your business to the world.
Welcome back. Law enforcement officers are often the first individuals victims of domestic violence are likely to encounter to report their abuse. Building their capacity is therefore a key. This report by QTV's Jenna Basonko takes a look at the role of the police in tackling SGBV.
As first responders, the police play an important role in protecting victims' safety and enhancing or ensuring offender accountability. Although law enforcement may be unable or unwilling to rapidly address all incidents of domestic and intimate partner violence in all locations, its visibility and authority continue to increase the likelihood that a person experiencing domestic violence will come into contact with law enforcement officers.
In the Gambia, we've had a lot of sexual violence cases, but most of the times these cases are not fully litigated. Sometimes even they don't make it to court, and other times when they make it to court, the cases would be withdrawn by victims because of fear of vilification from society, from family members and members of their community. And other times it's because of lack of very important and essential evidence, which has resulted to the cases not making it far.
A functioning criminal justice system play an important role in ensuring victims of gender-based violence can access justice. However, anecdotally, if not factually, the police are often perceived as tampering with SGBV evidence before they reach the courts.
I'm not here to defend the police, but all what I can say is sometimes, yes, that is possible, but we have very rare occasions that police will tamper the evidence before it reaches to court. Well, as we are saying that the gender-based violence is a crime against women and children. So in the community that we live, people fear to come and report the matter to the police. That is the stigma in this country. But we are doing everything possible to make sure that anybody who committed this kind of crime, the person is arrested and the person is taken before the court.
The National Human Rights Commission also has a role in tackling SGBV cases, but has its limits as at some point the police takes over. The Human Rights Commission has recently set up a committee to investigate sexual harassment at workplaces.
Sexual gender-based violence issues are human rights issues because most of the time victims are deprived of their right to life, right to privacy, right to dignity and security of the person. And when it comes to the National Human Rights Commission, we have a complaints reporting mechanism wherein victims of sexual and gender-based violence can walk into our office and then report cases of sexual and gender-based violence. We will investigate. We have been receiving a lot of cases regarding sexual and gender-based violence, and we have been investigating and making our reports.
In 2020, Think Young Women secured funding from the British High Commission for the project promoting justice for victims and survivors of sexual violence in the Gambia.
Tackling violence against women and girls is everybody's business, from health providers to law enforcement to employers and friends and family. We all need to play our part. By allowing women to disclose violence as part of their everyday interactions, we can support earlier identification and intervention to stop violence.
Think Young Women is a young women-led non-profit organization in the Gambia, formed in 2010 and officially registered in 2011. The organization seeks to inspire and assist girls and young women to achieve their individual needs and collective interests by developing their leadership skills, empowering them through capacity building, awareness raising, networking and mentorship. Reporting for QTV News, I am Jenna Bosonko.
Now to a public notice. The Ministry of Transport, Works and Infrastructure is inviting all driving schools to a general meeting at MDI Road, Canifing on Friday, 5th February 2021 at 1500. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss transportation and road safety issues in the country. All registered and functioning driving schools are invited to this meeting and encouraged to bring along their business registration details. We will take a commercial break. When we return, we continue with international news.
Your favorite QCell service has gotten bigger. eFunkanta. Now you can loan bigger credit amounts to make life easier for you. Loan $75 and $100 and pay later. Yes, you heard me right. Get credit loan from $10 to $100 using eFunkanta by dialing *393#. Anytime you run out of credit, whether you want to buy Q-Power, browse the internet, make urgent calls, or send SMS. eFunkanta is the service for you. Dial *393# and choose the loan amount of your choice with no hassle. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyabus, the pioneers of mobile loan service in the Gambia. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is QTV News. Security forces have withdrawn from Ugandan presidential candidate Bobi Wine's residence after he spent 11 days under house arrest. His lawyer told the media on Tuesday the withdrawal comes after a Ugandan judge ruled on Monday that the security forces may not continue to keep Bobi Wine under de facto house arrest. More in this report.
The judge ordered that the state and its agencies should immediately vacate his property and his right to personal liberty should immediately be reinstated, his lawyer told reporters. The 38-year-old singer turned politician who ran against President Yoweri Museveni in the recent presidential election has been barred from leaving his house without a military escort since January 24th. The detention of Wine has angered his supporters, who see it as an extension of the harassment he faced from security forces who frequently broke up his campaign events, citing measures to control the spread of the coronavirus. Ugandan authorities have said Wine can only leave his home under military escort because they fear his presence in public could incite a demonstration. However, the judge ruled that Wine's home is not a proper detention facility and noted that the authorities should criminally charge him if he threatens public order. The house arrest of Wine is having an impact on his ability to challenge the presidential election results because a losing presidential candidate has 10 days from the announcement of the final results to challenge them in court. Official results declared on January 16th saw Museveni won the January 14th election with 59% of the vote, while Wine had 35%. Wine insists he has won and has said he can prove that the military was stuffing ballot boxes, casting ballots for people and chasing voters away from polling stations. The former rapper said on Friday that he may not challenge the results of the election in court because a loss there would confirm Museveni's win. Museveni, who has been in power since 1986, has denied allegations of electoral fraud and called the poll the most cheating-free since the country's independence from Britain in 1962. The election was marked by violence ahead of polling day as well as an internet shutdown that remained in force until Monday, when access was restored for most Ugandans. In a Facebook Live address on Friday, Bobi Wine said Ugandans had a right to protest if they so wished, though he did not outright call on his supporters to take to the streets. Wine is not the first Ugandan opposition leader to be kept under home confinement. Kizza Besigye, an unsuccessful candidate in Uganda's 2001, 2006, 2011, 2016 and 2021 presidential elections, was kept under house arrest for more than 2 months after the 2016 election. This week, the Ugandan Electoral Commission removed all presidential result updates from its website and Facebook page. After criticism, the Commission was compelled to issue the following statement. It is not true that the Electoral Commission of Uganda has deleted or pulled down results, as the same results have not yet been published. It is true, however, that the Electoral Commission has developed 2021 results section and even tested the links, which are now disabled, as finalization process are concluded. The results will be published in the Gazette, print media, and on the website. End of statement. Mamudu Gajaga, Qtv News.
A third night of rioting has rocked the Netherlands as protesters defied a curfew order and rampaged through towns and cities, vandalizing and looting shops. Here is the report.
More than 180 people were arrested on Monday in Amsterdam and Rotterdam, where some of the worst disturbances occurred, and police said 10 officers were hurt. After an emergency order issued by the mayor of Rotterdam, Ahmed Abu Talib, failed to move demonstrators, he issued an emergency decree giving police broader powers of arrest. Police fired a warning shot and tear gas and used a water cannon, as well as batons, horses and dogs to disperse the rioters. Police intervened on Amsterdam's Central Museum Square, where hundreds of protesters gathered despite the pandemic rules limiting outdoor contact to no more than 2 people. Fearing a riot or a disease-spreading event, the mayor of Amsterdam, Femke Halsema, had designated the square as a high-risk zone and gave police the power to preemptively frisk people for weapons. And in Stein, near Maastricht, close to Belgium, clashes with police occurred as they broke up an illegal party reportedly attended by 100 people. Trouble also flared up in smaller centres around the country, such as Den Bosch, Zwolle, Amersfoort, Alkmaar, Hoorn and Gouda, where several cars were set on fire, and Haarlem, where police were attacked with stones. The curfew came into force on Saturday, and between then and Sunday, police said 300 people were detained after youth threw rocks and in one case knives at officers, attacked a hospital and burned down a COVID testing station. Vehicles were also set ablaze, and shops plundered in Eindhoven. More than 5,700 fines were issued for breaking the curfew. Officials said the rioters, who reportedly used social media apps to organize, were overwhelmingly teenagers and questioned the extent to which they were motivated by opposition to the 9 p.m. curfew. Prime Minister Mark Rutte condemned what he calls criminal violence, saying, "It's unacceptable. All normal people will regard this with horror. What motivated these people has nothing to do with protesting. It's criminal violence and we will treat it as such." Mayors in several cities have vowed to introduce emergency measures in an effort to prevent more disturbances. Bars and restaurants have been shut in the Netherlands since October, with schools and non-essential shops following suit in mid-December. The curfew, the first in the country since World War II, was imposed after the National Institute for Health warned a new wave of infections was on its way owing to the risk posed by new and more infectious variants, though numbers of new infections in the Netherlands have been falling for weeks. There are simmering anxieties in Dutch towns and cities, say some analysts. With less than 2 months before a general election, voters are vulnerable and streets volatile. The current Rutte government is acting in a caretaker capacity before the election, scheduled for 17th of March, after resigning last week over a child benefit scandal. Analysts believe there is more restlessness and people are disappointed that things are taking very long, that the coronavirus is not going away, and that the Netherlands is doing very badly with vaccines. The Netherlands has registered nearly 1 million COVID-19 infections and over 13,500 confirmed virus deaths so far. By midweek, Dutch authorities had vaccinated just 100,000 people. The curfew is set to last until at least February 10th, and officials fear the continuation of the violence while at the same time trying to preempt a new wave of the more transmissible COVID-19 strain. For QTV News, I am Mamadou Mbouch.
Before we end this bulletin, let's take a quick look at our main stories. Lawyers on Tuesday argued over the case before the Supreme Court regarding the National Assembly's controversially approved $54.4 million dialysis loan scheme. The family of Alhaji Kemo Quantum made a significant contribution towards access to health care for children by handing over a newly built children's ward at the Kerawan Health Center to the Minister of Health. Law enforcement officers are often the first individuals of victims of domestic violence are likely to encounter to report their abuse. We take a look at the role of the police in tackling SGBV. The National Assembly's Public Enterprise Committee on Monday began consideration of the report submitted by GRTS for the 2019 fiscal year. In international news, security forces have withdrawn from Ugandan presidential candidate Bobi Wine's residence after he spent 11 days under house arrest. A third night of rioting has rocked the Netherlands as protesters defied a curfew order and rampaged through towns and cities causing havoc. That's all we have for you in this bulletin of QTV News. Do join us at 10 p.m. for another bulletin. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.